Welcome back to the Whole Nine Yards here on a Wednesday night. Drew Pien with Brandon Krikorian. Brandon, Thanksgiving's tomorrow. It's one of those holidays. It's probably the holiday that people don't always celebrate on Thursday. There's a lot of people, whether it's divorced parents or just work conflict or stuff like that. Typically, I've always celebrated it on a Thursday, but this year I'm celebrating it on like a Friday slash Saturday. So you got
Really?
any plans or? I feel
Actually
like there's a lot
never.
of people that celebrate it like not on Thursday, which is interesting. I typically always do, but this year I'm not. So
I've actually never heard of that. I always celebrate on Thursday, but yeah, I've never heard of that before. But yeah, going to the grandparents' house, watching the games, of course, obviously. But I feel like that's what most people do, right? Go to your grandparents' house.
typically, yeah. So I guess we'll just get into the Thanksgiving games. There's three games. We're gonna do predictions like we do every week. So we get three Thanksgiving games that we're both picking this week.
Yeah,
Two games from Sunday slash Monday. I think we're both exclusively Sunday. And then we're gonna talk about LeBron suspension that came out, and then we'll get into college football. But we'll start off with Thanksgiving games. I guess I'll go first. So the first game is Bears at Lions. Uh, Chicago is a 2.5 point favorite. I'm going with Detroit here. I hate to be the guy. I don't know. I hate to be the guy that like picks the winless team to get a win here, but I'm gonna pick Detroit to win outright. I think that Dan Campbell has control of this team from like an emotional aspect. I think this team is not out on him, like maybe the Jets are on Sala or the Bears are on Nagy specifically, and that's a reason why I'm picking the Lions here. Is we get into the Bears, it seems like he's fired, whether or at least there's been huge reports that he's gone, whether or not he wins this game or loses this game in mid-season, which is crazy. Which to me means that even if he gets fired or not, he's probably lost the locker room. This team's already not talented to begin with. No Khalil Mack for the rest of the season. Your quarterback situation's not particularly great. Your offense is not great. Your defense should be good, but it's probably not even very good. This team's just not a good team. And I think the Lions Thanksgiving really emotional. Dan Campbell's been maybe not the best head coach on the field, but he certainly has a grasp on this team and they're willing to play for him, and it would be a huge win for the Lions. So I'm going to take the points and pick the Lions to win outright.
yeah. I'm taking the Bears in this one. Uh, the Lions have lost four straight Thanksgiving games. I'm actually looking at their record right now. They went from 2004 to 2012. They lost every single Thanksgiving game. So that's what, 9 games. Then they won four straight. Now they've lost four straight. So again, I'm gonna assume that they lose. Like you said, they still haven't won a game so far this year. And I mean, would it make sense for them to win this game? I guess it would, because you're right. The report came out, I think it was yesterday, that Nagy completely lost the locker room, which they said it was somewhat gone last year, but now it's completely gone, which doesn't bode well for picking them, especially 2.5. That's not, that's still a little bit of a line there. But for some reason, I feel like they're going to win this game. If they lose this game, and again, I don't think the Bears have ever fired a coach mid-season. I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think they have either.
And that's not something that they usually do. So unless they lose this game, there's no, like, if they lose this game, he's getting fired. I think for sure, because it's just unacceptable to lose this game. But I think he's going to try and save face a little bit. I think they do win again. Dalton's starting, Fields isn't starting. It's going to be Dalton for this game. Maybe that plays a little bit of a factor. I don't know. I mean, maybe more professional guy back there. Obviously the offense is a little bit more open with him in there, because with Fields, they just don't let him throw the ball for some reason. So maybe it's a little bit more open. Maybe you actually can sustain drives. So I don't know, but I feel like the Bears are just the better team in my opinion. So I think they should win. But like you said, I would not be surprised at all if they lost, because the players might just not even try. Because why would they? Because they want him fired. So I could see it going either way, but I'm going with the Bears in this one.
I think if I had to pick a game I'm most confident in this Sunday, or I guess this week, I feel like I kind of lean towards the Lions winning. I don't know. Maybe I just come out and I'm completely wrong. I don't have a game that I'm like this is a lock. I really don't. Like I have games that I'm confident in, but none of these I'm like this is a lock. I guess we'll get into the second game though. Raiders at Cowboys. Two just not great teams to me. No, I'm kidding. Well, the Raiders are definitely not a great team. They've clearly fallen off, and the spread reflects that. The Cowboys are 7.5 point favorites. Had this game been week 4, maybe this is a different story. Maybe it's a 4 point spread. Maybe it's a 3 point spread. Who knows? But with Dallas looking as good as they have, even though they've had some definite letdown weeks, Kansas City, Denver, but they've looked a lot better this year, and the Raiders have just not looked good at all. And off-field stuff, Gruden, Ruggs, Arnett,
Yeah.
it just a lot just has not gone for them. I'm picking Dallas. The 7.5 just isn't enough for me to say I'm gonna go with Las Vegas here. So, am I scared that the Raiders could win by, or I guess lose by less than 7.5? Kind of, but I'm just not confident enough in the Raiders, and I could totally see the Dallas blowing them out by a bunch, especially coming off last year's Thanksgiving game where you could pretty much embarrass yourself. I think they could totally be due for a really good Thanksgiving showing this week.
Yeah, I'm also taking Dallas 7.5. Like, kind of similar to what you said, like the line, even still, it was a little bit surprising. There's still going to be no Amari, no Tyron Smith. CD Lamb practiced today, but he might play, he may not play, but still, that's not. It's most likely a game time decision, or like right before the game, they'll probably announce that. So, they could still be out a lot of key players. But yeah, I think this is more indicative of the Raiders, to be honest. They just obviously have not been playing good football as of late, and you know 7.5. I feel like it's all about the offense. Obviously, for the Cowboys, as long as they could, as long as they're putting up points, they're gonna easily cover that spread. I don't doubt that. The Raiders they don't have the firepower offensively. If you look at Carr's last, I think 3 or 4 games, he has like 6 turnovers or 7 turnovers, whatever it is. So he's not been good lately. I think the stuff with Gruden, all that stuff is finally catching up to them after they actually went on a little bit of a winning streak. Now they're on a losing streak. So I could easily, I just see them losing this game. And even though the Cowboys, I try to pull up the record, but on Thanksgiving, but I mean, recently they rather win or they get blown out on Thanksgiving the last couple of years. So I'm just going to assume that this is one of the years that they win. And like I said, 7.5 points, they should be able to cover that. I would assume the offense bounces back. Obviously, again, at home, no environment that you have to worry about. Again, at home, no noise or anything like that. So I expect them to win this game pretty handily.
The last game on Thanksgiving, Thursday night, Bills at Saints. Saints are 6.5 point underdogs at home, which is a pretty large spread. With that being said, though, I'm going Buffalo. I don't love Buffalo. It's kind of similar to the Raiders at Cowboys game for me. I just don't love the Saints. I just have no faith in them. Their quarterback situation's a mess. Their defense, while can be really, really good at times, maybe even great, is still kind of inconsistent here and there. Obviously, their offense, other than the quarterback, is not good either. I have no faith in the Saints team. I don't necessarily love the Bills either, but I'll take the Bills to win by more than 6.5 on the road.
Yeah, I'm taking the Bills also, and it's more so that I just don't trust the Saints. Again, I still think it seems like it's gonna be Simeon starting again, which I don't think works for them. Kamara's already out for this game. Ingram's questionable, so we'll see if he plays, and if he does play, how effective is he? Again, he's really not that effective anyways. So I just nothing excites me about the Saints team. Now their defense can for sure maybe make an impact on the game, but I would expect the Bills offense to bounce back. I mean, they're too talented of an offense to not put up points and maybe not look like they did last year because it's hard just to do that in a short week, a normal week, anyways. But I expect them to at least look somewhat normal of what the team that we expected them to be going to this season. And this is a much needed win for them. They're 6-4. If they lose this game, they're 6-5. The division's slipping away, obviously, even just seeding in general. So this is a big win. It's still a good, team to beat on the road. Still a tough environment to play. So I expect them to play a lot better in this game. And yeah, 6 points. I mean, as long as they win by a touchdown, then it fits. So yeah, Bills in this one. And to this one, I honestly feel this one or the Cowboys one, I feel the most comfortable with. In most confidence in, I should say, in those 2 games.
And for the Bills, this isn't necessarily indicative of anything, but when they lose, they seem to come with a bounce back win, and it typically is a blowout. Week 1 they lose to the Steelers in a surprising game. The next week they
Yep.
beat the Dolphins 35-0. Then another couple more blowouts. They lose to the Titans, and the next week they beat the Dolphins 26-11. It wasn't a pretty win, but on the scoreboard it was still a 15-point win. They more than doubled the Dolphins' points. Then they have a disappointing loss to the Jaguars, and the next week they come out and blow out the Jets 45-17. Now last week they lose to the Colts by 26. So if it's anything like what we've seen, they should be ready to come here and blow out the Saints and get a big win. Yeah, because if they do lose this game, then they pretty much have to beat the Patriots in both games to have a chance at the division, I think, because
Yeah.
we have no signs the Patriots are going to be slowing down anytime soon. And if the Bills go down to 6-5, yeah, I think you probably have to beat the Patriots in both of those games to have a chance at the division. And even at 6-5, that's when you get, like you said, you get into that territory where you're like, you don't even know if you're going to make the playoffs in general. So yeah,
Yeah.
I like the Bills to get this win. I think I'm probably most confident in either. I would say I'm probably still most confident in the Lions getting their win. I think they get it, but I'm more confident in the Bills game than I am the Cowboys game. Um, we'll get into our 2 Sunday picks. These are not on Thanksgiving, but of course, we still pick 5 games. My first one out of the Sunday games is Titans at Patriots. This game I'm not too confident in, only because of the spread. I'm confident the Patriots are going to win. Titans at Patriots. Patriots are a 6.5-point favorite. I'm going to talk about this in the Patriots episode, but yeah, I don't like the Titans right now. They just waived Adrian Peterson. Obviously, Henry's out for this game. He's probably out for the year. We've talked about it.
Yeah.
Tannehill threw 4 picks last week. A lot of other people are out. I could pull it up. There's a bunch. I think I could pull it up, but there's a bunch of other people out on offense. I don't like the Titans' offense at all, and I think the Patriots really just have to make Tannehill throw the ball, which they arguably don't even have to do anyways because they don't have Henry and they don't really have a running game because no Henry. So Tannehill's already going to be throwing the ball. I feel like we have a good time against Tannehill for the most part, especially when there's no Derrick Henry. And I don't think the Titans' defense is really anything special. They're definitely better than previous years, especially on the pass rush end of things. But yeah, they're nothing special to me. And I like the Patriots on an upward trend to win by more than 6.5 as compared to the Titans, who are seeming to start their decline now or their fall back to earth.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'll say is obviously Vrabel is, a former Patriot. He never coached the Patriots. Obviously, played for them. Comes from Belichick in that aspect. So I feel like even though it's only 6.5, again, it's only a touchdown game. It's not like if you're to lose by 7, you're getting blown out. But I feel like he may try and will this team to a victory or even just like it comes down to a last second field goal, something like that. But I mean, I do agree that the Titans for sure are looking down because again, I think the effect of no Henry is starting to settle in on that team, and it's definitely not a good matchup against a super hot team that just seems to have everything working for them right now. But I think maybe that aspect of it may play a factor in it. But we'll see. We'll see. I probably would still take Patriots if I had to pick this game, but I think that may play a little bit of a factor. But again, we'll have to see when it comes to Sunday. But for my fourth game, it's Vikings at Niners. The line is +3.5, and in favor of Minnesota, or I guess for Minnesota +3.5. And that's what I'm taking. This is a game for both teams that is arguably a must-win for both teams, just in terms of the seeding if you're going to make the playoffs. Because again, these two teams, their record as it stands are both 5-5. They're both hot right now. The Vikings have beat the Chargers and the Packers, 2 huge wins. Obviously, the Niners beat the Rams Monday night and then had a huge win, or just a convincing win against the Jaguars. It was over from the start. So these are 2 teams that are hot right now. And it's 2 teams that definitely need this win for sure for the playoff seeding. And just also, again, you don't want to be 5-6. You'd obviously rather be 6-5. But I kind of like the Vikings better. I think their offense is clicking now. Again, Jefferson, Thielen, Cook, Cousins. That's you can't really ask for more of an offensive repertoire than that in the league. Not many teams can say they have those 4 type guys. Even though you can say what you want about Cousins, but he still is one of the better quarterbacks in the league for sure. And again, you look at his stats. His stats say he's probably a top 5 quarterback. Now, obviously, he's not, but that's what his stats would say. But I really like the Vikings in this one. Again, plus 3.5. They can still lose this game by a field goal and still cover that. But I really do like the Vikings in this one. I think it's gonna be a really good game. Like I said, these are two hot teams right now. And also the Niners struggle at home. Their only home win was that Rams win this year, and even like 3/4 of last year. So they definitely struggle at home. But yeah, like I said, plus 3.5 Minnesota.
Yeah, I would agree. I think this might be the first game that is like gonna feel like a legit playoff game to me. It's in the 4:25 slot,
Hmm.
so it's not a 1 o'clock. People are gonna be watching it. It's pretty much a national televised game, pretty much. I mean, anybody
Yeah.
who wants to watch this game will be watching it. Uh, Whoever wins this game, they probably go from whatever their chances are of the playoffs right now. Maybe it's a coin flip at 5-5 to maybe a 60 or 70% chance because not only are you getting the win, but arguably your number one competitor for a wild card spot takes the L
Yeah.
against you. So you probably jump 10 to 20% to make the playoffs. If you lose this game, you probably drop a 10 or 20% chance to make the playoffs. So this is as close to as close to a playoff game as we've gotten in the regular season so far, in my opinion. There have been a lot of big games, but this one to me legitimately feels like if the Vikings lose this game, they have to go on another one of these crazy hot streaks where Kirk looks on paper like a top five quarterback, and Jefferson plays like a top five receiver, and Thielen still looks like he's in his prime. It's just they're gonna have to have one of those, and yeah, this to me feels like a playoff game. I'm picking this game as well. I'm going with the Niners though. They're 3.5 point favorites at home, which essentially means to me that if this was a neutral field game, it would be essentially a pick 'em.
Yep.
But Niners are at home. They're 3.5 point favorites. I like them to win this game. The 3.5 point total spread is just not enough for me to change my pick on that. I like the Niners more as a team. I think the Vikings, like you said, have a lot of pieces. Kirk on paper looks like a top five quarterback, but he just isn't. He just we I don't have I feel like I don't have to talk about Kirk that much. We just know what he is. He's probably around the 14th best quarterback in the league right now. He's probably playing like maybe the 10th, but realistically, he's probably the 14th to 18th best quarterback. He's not going to make any plays that are going to wow you, whether it's during the game or looking back on the game. There's just no plays that are going to wow you. There's a lot of pieces on offense, but I mean, you could legitimately argue that I know Jefferson just had a big week last week, but you can legitimately argue that Debo is the best receiver out of both of these teams. So far this year, at least, I think you could legitimately make that argument. I know we've hated on Shanahan, but I like Shanahan more than Zimmer. I don't love Zimmer. There are people that really like Zimmer. I'm not a part of that fan club. Even if the Vikings were to win this game, I still wouldn't be a Zimmer fan. To me he's a okay to good head coach at his peak, but he's probably on average, I think he's a subpar head coach who probably will never be able to get his team to a Super Bowl. He's had some really good rosters, and he hasn't been able to get it done. So I like the 49ers. I like the 49ers to win this game. One quick thing, though, before you do go is the Patriots, today's practice, everybody was at least a limited participant. For the Titans, they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people that did not participate. That includes AJ Brown. That includes Jeremy McNichols. That includes a lot of people. So Harold Landry did not participate. So we'll see what it looks like at game time. But the Patriots should be the healthier team.
Yeah, yeah, and we'll see. And one thing, the Debo versus Jefferson, I'm just looking at their stats right now. Debo is 50 more yards receiving. Again, that's not even his rushing yards as well, which is a super effective rusher, but that's on 8 less catches. So you think of Jefferson as this like deep threat, which he is for sure, but he has 8 more catches and 50 less yards than Debo, who, it's not like the Niners are really throwing the ball deep, I wouldn't say. I mean, Garoppolo isn't a deep thrower, and that's not really what their offense is about. So I was actually pretty surprised when I saw that. And I really like Debo Samuel. I think he's one of the best receivers in the league, or at least just one of the best weapons in the league. I'll say because of his ability to run the ball. But this season he's absolutely broke out. Now maybe if you're a Niners fan, you saw this coming, or even last year. Again, I wasn't really paying attention so closely to that, but I would love to have him on my team. I think he's a perfect weapon to have on your team, running the ball or catching the ball.
Yeah, I would agree. On a wide receiver screenplay, which is run pretty fairly often in the NFL,
Yeah,
Debo is one of, if not the best receivers to have on that type of play. 100% better
yeah,
than Jefferson. Jefferson's a better, I guess, traditional wide receiver. He's probably a better route runner. He's definitely better down the field. He's better in like a one-on-one close coverage jump ball scenario. But I think it's actually pretty close. I think I still lean Jefferson if I had to pick one receiver for the rest of their careers, because I think of Jefferson as he's been more consistent, even though Jefferson, this is only his second year in the league. We've only seen this type of play from Jefferson. Debo started off in his rookie year kind of as a more of a gadget player. I think he was more of that, like, kind of maybe like a better version of Tavon Austin. Like if Tavon Austin didn't bust, that's what he would have been. And I think this year we've finally started to see Debo kind of break out and be more of a, you know, what, like a weapon, a legitimate
Yeah,
weapon on the offense. I would lean Jefferson, but yeah, I love Debo for sure.
yeah, yeah. But moving on to my last game, Rams at Packers. The line's -1, or the line's one, but I'm taking the Rams -1. They're on the road here, but Rodgers has this toe injury, which, is it a broken toe? They're saying, is it a COVID toe? Like I saw that on Twitter as well. Like something has to do with the COVID or something. So I don't know what's going on with this toe, but he even came out and said that it's bothering him a lot. So maybe that plays a little bit of a factor. He looked good in the Vikings game, at least towards the end of the game, not so much the beginning. But maybe that plays a little bit of factor. Rams coming off a bye after those two bad losses to the Titans at home and then the Niners on the road. You have another week to at least bring Odell into the offense. Maybe you can get something with him. Obviously, you still have Cooper Kupp, Henderson, Michelle, obviously Stafford, everything like that. I'm going to assume that Stafford plays better. Obviously, he's been in Lambeau before. His whole career, he's obviously played in Lambeau, so that should be nothing new to him. But you also have McVay versus LaFleur. Obviously, those are two good friends as well. But I like the Rams again. -1. It's not anything much to cover, anyways. But I like the Rams in this one. This is a must-needed win for them. Because if they lose this one, then that's 3-0, 3 in a row they were lost. They could say bye to the division at that point. 7-4, you're probably not winning division when Kyler comes back after this bye healthy. And also just in the seeding, the NFC, Cowboys are 7-3, Bucks are 7-3. And then obviously the Packers would be 9-3 if you were to lose to them. So I feel like this is a must win for them, to be honest, if they want to stay division or even second seed in the NFC. So because of those reasons, I like the -1.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that pick. It wasn't one of the ones I did pick, but I think I would agree with that assessment. But
Yeah.
that's our predictions. Our current records right now. So I went 3-2 last week.
Um, and I was 1-4.
So I gotta update my record, but that would put me at 27, 21, and 2. So that's a pretty solid record. I'll double check that at some point just to make sure that's 100% accurate. But I'm like 95. I'm like 98% sure that's accurate.
Yeah, that seems right, to be honest.
So 27, 21, and 2. You're 29, 20, and 1.
Yep.
So I'm only a couple games behind at this point. A couple
Game and
wins
a half.
behind.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's close, and I think we're both having a decent year. We're both a significant amount above 500 at this point. I'm 6 games above 500, or 6 wins above 500 at least.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to take our bets every single week and actually bet them, you'd be in the positive. So
Yeah,
that's the way to think
which
about
is I
it.
think that's
But
pretty good.
yeah, that's as long as you're in the positive and it's by at least a couple of games, I think that's pretty good.
Now, what I'm actually curious about is I wonder what our records would look like had we bet every single game, had we picked every single game against the spread. I'm actually not convinced it would be completely different. Because there are some weeks that we're like, we have a game or two that we like, but there are some times where we're picking 3 games that like we're slightly more confident in than we are like the average game.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, again, most of the time it's 16 games. Out of 16 games, yeah, I mean, most of the weeks we're going 3-2 or 4 and. I guess we're going 3-2 most of the weeks, but honestly, it's a lot of 4-1. Not a lot of 1-4s. Really, I don't think there's been an 0-5. I think I had the one 5-0,
I
but
think I might have had
it's
an 0-5. Actually, I don't know. Maybe not.
did you? I don't know, but even still, that's only really gonna happen once, maybe twice. So yeah, I think we'd probably, if we're doing 16 games, I think we'd probably be like 10-6, 9-7, like that would be the average, and then obviously some weeks would be 11-5 or whatever. But yeah, that's what I would think. Yeah.
All
Then there
right.
would be some
Well,
weeks where you're, 6-10.
yeah, yeah. So we'll get into the LeBron stuff. We talked about the
Yeah,
incident after it happened. I think it was the night that it happened.
was.
The suspensions came out. LeBron gets 1 game, Stewart gets 2.
Yeah.
Any problems with that?
Well, I'm gonna say so. LeBron gets one. Um, Look, we both agreed that it was intentional, correct?
Yeah, I think it was intentional. I
Yeah,
think
that
we both agreed that maybe he didn't mean to hit him as hard as he did and make
yeah.
him bleed and everything. But yeah, we agreed that he at least was angry at the time and clearly was trying to send some sort of message. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he definitely meant to hit him, but didn't mean to hit him that hard. 'Cause I mean, he did hit him pretty hard. Obviously, he was bleeding from his eye, but he did actually hit him pretty hard. But you know, I mean, look, he got ejected from the game. I guess it's not like the NFL. Like in the NFL, if you get ejected from the game, you usually don't get suspended because, I mean, obviously you're only playing, I guess now 17 games, but like kind of the ejection is the suspension in the NFL. In the NBA, I guess it's different because like you can get a flagrant two on just about any call and get ejected from the game. So I guess I see it that way, but you know, I don't I don't have a problem with him being suspended, but especially being LeBron, I was a little surprised that he was suspended for a game, especially and then maybe that's just the way the schedule works out. But it was the Knicks game in Madison Square Garden on national television. I mean, obviously, you'd rather have LeBron playing in that game where they play the Pacers in Indiana tonight. You could suspend him for this game. So I don't know. I don't know if they look at it like that. They most likely don't. But there is
I,
you can look at it that way though.
I think they did. I think they had to make a tough decision because it would have been a super easy decision to suspend him for a game had this happened in the Madison Square Garden game. Because first off, it's against the Knicks, and everyone's watching that game, or at least
Yeah.
most people, or a lot of people are, compared to Detroit Pistons. And obviously, the suspension would not have to happen on the night where you're playing the Knicks. I think they had to look at it, and they had to make a tough decision because I don't think it's really possible to suspend him for the Pacers game, but let him play the Knicks one. At least I don't feel like that's possible.
You
Like,
could put the suspension down, but basically tell LeBron to appeal it so that he could play the Knicks game, but then deny the appeal so that he's suspended for the Pacers game. You could do that as well.
yeah, I mean, I guess you could, but I guess that's up to I don't know. I just think that's a lot, and I think they thought that was a lot and just not really worth it for this game, even though it is a prime time Lakers Knicks game. I just think that's where you start to get to like some weird NBA conspiracy stuff, and I don't think they want to be involved with that. They already have to deal with the lottery stuff every year. Um, yeah, I think they had to make the tough decision, and they cared about setting the precedent that this type of street or whatever behavior in these NBA games is just not gonna fly. I mean, I know they know that LeBron didn't necessarily mean to make him bleed and everything like that, but I think they wanted to send that message that the NBA is 100% just not the same product that it was back in early 2000s, 1990s, 80s, 70s, where Bill Laimbeer can't you can't just do what Laimbeer did and just shove people anywhere you wanted and just push them
Yeah.
to the floor for no reason. Um, and it was just considered a hard foul at the time. That's just not you can't do that anymore. And Stewart getting 2 games, I think Stewart probably deserved more games than LeBron. I think the whole just aftermath of everything, it was just a little bit much. So yeah.
Yeah, Stewart. I mean, for sure, should have got more than LeBron. It's tough to suspend him for more games than two, only because he technically didn't do anything. Like he never hit LeBron. He never actually, really like grabbed him. Like when they got close to each other. So he never actually, did anything. He was just I guess he was just prolonging it, and also like he got ejected and he wasn't leaving the court. So I guess that's also another thing. But yeah, like if he were actually to have pushed LeBron or like touched them or whatever, then I think he probably would have got like 5 games. Because he wouldn't have left the court, he would have prolonged it, he would have touched them, he would have shoved them, whatever. But considering the fact he actually never really did anything, it's hard to suspend him for more than two. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's obviously the way they looked at it, I guess. But whatever, it's done now, so that's really doesn't matter.
overall, overall, I'm satisfied with 2 games for Stewart, 1 game for LeBron. Honestly, I don't even really care that much. To
Yeah,
be fair, like out of I was not going to be watching either of the 2 games that Stewart would have been suspended for, and that did not impact had he been playing or not. I'm not watching those games anyways. The LeBron being suspended sucks, I guess, but I mean, you know what? I've LeBron's played New York enough. Like I'm fine with it. I don't care. So had I been, was I if I was going to that game, I would
Yeah.
be not happy, right? I mean that would suck, but
Yeah, that would. I mean, I'm going to the Knicks game on Friday night against the Suns. So if that would have been the Lakers game, yeah, I would be pretty mad because, like, I mean, I've never seen LeBron play. So, and because I went to a Nets Warriors game a couple years ago, and KD wasn't playing in that game. Like, that sucked obviously because it would be my first time seeing him play, and then it turns out he doesn't even play. I still saw Steph play, but I would have loved to see KD play, obviously.
yeah, I don't even remember the last NBA game I went to, honestly.
Yeah, this one I'm going to is the first one in I mean at least 2 years, but I think maybe even 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I have to. I think it was maybe the early IT year, or maybe the year before IT got traded. That was like the last time I went to a game.
It's like 2015, 2016.
2015, 2014, maybe.
Yeah,
It's
even
been a while. I mean,
2014.
the tickets are definitely not like cheap. Like I was just like I had a friend who lived like in Cleveland, and like this was back when the Browns were bad. I haven't talked to him in a while, but like the game, like you could literally just decide to just walk and just go to a Browns
Yeah.
game for like just fun, which is to me crazy. Like no, unless you have just like so much money that you could drop $1,000 on the ground and not realize. Like I don't know, like you're not going to a Patriots game just on a whim. Like you're not just. It's not
Yeah.
like a spontaneous activity like going to the mall or anything. It's just
That's weird for a football game. Usually, like a baseball game, you could do that. Like, if you're going to see the Orioles or someone like that, you could just walk right in as soon as the game starts. Even like, whenever you could just walk right in and buy a ticket, and it costs you nothing. But for a football game, that's impressive. I mean, because every football game sells out. Just, I mean, even if you're 0-16, you're basically selling out every single game. So that's actually pretty crazy to hear.
yeah. I mean the Browns are pretty bad, so it makes sense in a way. But it was actually making me think. Like obviously you would rather have your teams winning as much as possible, but it also means that when you're in a city like Boston or a city like near New York or LA or Dallas or like any of those types of cities, Houston, like it's just hard to. It's just you can't really go to those games for fun. Like it's like a pre-set up event that like you're deciding on months in advance, most likely, especially if it's like Cowboys, Patriots, probably Knicks too. You're
Yeah.
probably not deciding to go to a Knicks game like the weekend before or whatever. Like it's probably a month in advance type of thing. So, which
Yeah,
is crazy.
the only real one I would say is rather baseball or hockey. Even hockey still, I guess depending on like New York, like Bruins, Rangers, I would say maybe not because again, those are like sellouts and those are like avid fan bases. But like baseball, like like my friends go to the Mets games. Like, I mean, you could just go to the Mets game if you want. Like, it's really not that big of a deal, and that's a New York team that's not terrible. I mean, they're not amazing, but they're still obviously one of the biggest funded teams in the league. So even still in that point, and a New York baseball team, you could still kind of just get a ticket if you really want to go.
Yeah, I've actually been to City Field once. It was a. I think we
How
talked
was it?
about this once, but it was a Nationals Mets game. Joe
Um,
Ross versus Degrom, I want to say.
well, it's a good It's a good pitcher, at least Degrom. I mean, I don't know about Joe
Yeah,
Ross, but
Nationals lost, but whatever.
um, how was City Field?
I thought it was pretty nice. I've actually never been to Fenway, so
Really?
I can't compare it to Fenway, but I'm just gonna say, in my opinion, Fenway's overrated. Even though I've never been, I'm just gonna say it
Well, I heard
because
it's very very crammed in there.
I just don't envision. Listen, I get this stupid like boomer mystique thing about like Fenway and Wrigley, but you know what? I'm not a boomer. I don't have any nostalgia towards like all this stuff. I just yeah, I don't envision how. I'm not saying City Field would be better than Fenway, but no, I don't like if somebody were to say like give me your top five best like stadiums in general. Obviously, I've never been at every stadium in the four major sports or whatever, but I would not be putting Fenway in my like top five. And then there are a lot of people that would.
I think in terms of just baseball stadiums, I think Fenway is top two with Wrigley. I would say. I
I
think
would say
almost
yeah,
anyone would agree with that. So
yeah. I just to me, I don't get it. Like I get it, but I don't. I don't know. It's tough for me to really.
I've never been there
grasp.
for a game. I've been there for a tour, but I've never been there for a game, so I can't relate either.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'll probably end up going at some point in my life, but and then I'll come back to the podcast and I'll give my feedback and I'll make a video reviewing Fenway. But until
Yeah.
then, my it's overrated opinion is just gonna have to be good enough. But that's that for the LeBron stuff. I don't know how we really got into all that, but
Yeah, we kind of pivoted a little bit, but that's fine.
so college football, the rankings, the most recent rankings were released. Let me pull them up. But Georgia's one, Bama's two, or sorry,
Ohio State's
Ohio
number
State's
two.
two, Bama's three, Cincinnati's four, Michigan's five. That's all
Yeah.
I remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly who was number six. Michigan State lost; they were number seven. So obviously, Oregon lost; they were number three. They're out of the top. I don't know where they're at, but I know they're not number six. I don't know what number six is, but I'm sure you're gonna look at it. So, um,
I'm wrong actually. Michigan's six, Notre Dame's five, Oklahoma State's seven, Mississippi eight, Baylor nine, Oklahoma 10, Oregon 11, Michigan State 12.
yeah, BYU's number 13 actually. Yeah, so Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, Cincinnati. So again, this is the last week of college football. Then we go to the conference championship games, which most of them are pretty much set. Like it's going to be Georgia, Alabama, unless one of them loses this week. But that I'd be surprised. But again, you never know. Again, this is rivalry week as well. In the Big Ten, again, Ohio State plays Michigan this week. I mean, they absolutely blew out Michigan State last week, and in my opinion, I see the same thing happening. I see them. They've beat Michigan what 4 or 5 straight years. I think ever since Harbaugh's got there, they beat them,
Yeah,
which
Harbaugh
was
has not beaten Ohio State. Yeah.
that was 2015. I think he got there, 2014. So even like 6 or 7 years. And I see the same thing. I think they're gonna. I mean, maybe they won't blow them out. I think they will, but if they don't, they're still going to win. But the Big Ten should be Ohio State versus whatever team they'd have to play who they beat in the Big Ten championship. So I expect Georgia, Alabama, and Ohio State to be in the top four when the actual playoffs start. But it's about the number 4 seed. Now, do you think Cincinnati, who doesn't play in a major conference, in a top five conference, do you think even if they were to finish undefeated, which they still are, and they were to win their conference championship, do you still think that they would be able to stay at number four, or do you think an Oklahoma or another Power Five conference team that maybe has one loss, maybe didn't even win their bowl, most likely would have to win it? Do you think they would be the number 4 seed over Cincinnati? Because that's what I feel like.
So I think it comes down to whether or not Notre Dame, Michigan, or Oklahoma State has a really impressive last week and then championship game. I think Michigan, if Michigan beats Ohio State, oh, I don't see Ohio State missing out on the playoff at this point. Even if they were to lose against Michigan.
They'd have to win their conference championship then.
Yeah,
But I think it would be technically it would be Michigan then in the Big Ten championship though. Wouldn't it, right? I mean, I don't again, we're not the biggest college football fans, but they're both 10-1 and Michigan would have beat Ohio State, so I would assume that Michigan would be in the Big Ten championship game, not Ohio State.
Um,
Again,
I
I
don't. Yeah, I
don't
don't
really know the
know,
rules, but
but
I would assume that's what it is.
yeah, I don't know. I just to me, okay, even if unless Ohio State loses two more games, um, I think they're in. Georgia's in no matter what at this point. I think Bama, Bama's. I mean, okay, I don't know. I think Bama's probably in regardless. I just don't think they've really treated like Mississippi's 9-2. They're ranked 8. Baylor's 9-2. They're ninth. The only team that they've really held true to this team's undefeated. We're gonna rank them super high is Cincinnati, but they haven't really treated one or two lost teams like they can't be ranked or anything like that. So I think Georgia, Ohio State, and Alabama are just gonna find their way in. I view that. I think that's how it's gonna happen. I would be Alabama out of those three teams to me has the highest chance to not make it, but even then, I still think they're gonna make the play-in or the playoff. Cincinnati, I think, makes it in if Notre Dame looks bad in the near future. If Michigan looks bad, if Michigan gets blown up by Ohio State, then yeah, I mean, Cincinnati deserves it over Michigan. If Oklahoma State loses to Oklahoma, then yeah, then I think you start to get to a scenario where Cincinnati's in the playoff. Most likely that's Georgia at the 1, unless Georgia loses to Bama. And then I think I think whoever gets to play, I think that's a huge advantage. Whoever gets to play Cincinnati, if Cincinnati makes the playoff, is a huge advantage. Because I think Georgia, Ohio State, and Alabama are all fairly close. I think if you made me pick a team right now, I'd pick Georgia as the best out of those three. But I think Ohio State and Alabama are pretty close. None of these teams are just clear and above favorites at all. I think all three of these teams are relatively close. I would give Georgia the slight edge. But to me, I think whatever team gets to play Cincinnati, if Cincinnati makes the playoff, whichever team, has a big advantage because only having to play one legitimate game rather than playing two legitimate games, I think matters. Because I don't know, nobody views Cincinnati as let's just say the playoff started right now, Georgia versus Cincinnati. I don't think a single person is even considering the fact Cincinnati could win, and I'm not even sure there are many people that would think Cincinnati's even competing in that game.
I think the line would be 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think it would probably be 3 touchdowns. Yeah,
I
you
think
see
at
like a
least
19
three
and a half.
touchdowns, to be honest. Like it would be, yeah, it would be like that. And look, I don't even think Cincinnati's gonna when after this week's game and the next week's games. I don't think Cincinnati's gonna be in there unless every single team that's close, like a Notre Dame, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, unless they all were to lose and just everyone were to lose and not win their conference championship or whatever, then there'd have to be something like that for them to get in. But again, even Oklahoma gets, even though they're number 10 right now, they play Oklahoma State this week. If they were to win that game, then I would assume that they're in the Big 12 championship. And if they were to win that game, then it's hard not to look at Oklahoma with a one loss and you win your conference to be in the college football playoff over Cincinnati, who literally has not played one good team this year, not anywhere close to what Oklahoma would have to play. So that would be tough. Notre Dame would be tough. Again, it's not like they're not technically in a conference; they just play the ACC. But still, it's hard not to put them there. But whatever team is that 4 seed, they're going to lose to Georgia, assuming it's Georgia number 1. Even if it's Bama, whoever it is, they're going to lose anyways. But we'll see. Yeah, again, I just don't think Cincinnati's going to be there. I mean, it took them all the way to this week to even put them in the top 4. So when Oregon was technically in there, but the only reason they were in there was just because they beat Ohio State. If they never beat Ohio State, they wouldn't be anywhere close. But I actually looked at the Big Ten scenarios. So
I
if
did
Ohio,
too.
yeah, so if Ohio State wins this week, they're in the Big Ten championship. If Michigan wins, they're in the Big Ten championship. And then that's on the east side. Then on the west side, if Wisconsin wins, they're in. If Iowa has to win and Wisconsin has to lose, and then there's Minnesota, but that takes a lot. So the winner of the Ohio State Michigan game is on the east side, and then as long as Wisconsin wins, they're on the west side. So it's really whoever wins the Michigan Ohio State game is going to win the Big Ten.
Yes. So essentially, they cannot play each other twice. I don't know why I didn't think about that as a possibility. Because Ohio State and Michigan, I've never heard of them playing twice in a season. Which, had they had the ability to in a Big Ten championship, would have happened for sure multiple times at this point. So yeah. So I definitely think that if Michigan wins, which I'm not going to pick it, but out of every year in John Harbaugh's career, I think this might be the year that it's most possible. I think this is a really good Michigan team, and I don't think this is one of the best. I think it's a really good Ohio State team, don't get me wrong, but I think we've seen better Ohio State teams in the past, like in the recent past. And I'm not sure we've seen an objectively better Michigan team in recent memory. So
The only, well, I think the best Michigan team was, I think it was 2016, I think it was, when they had that crazy game that came down to the end at Ohio State, which obviously Ohio State won. But I think the line tells you exactly what you need to know about this game. It's at Michigan, and Ohio State's favored by 8 points. So, if this is in Ohio State, they're favored by maybe even 2 touchdowns, honestly. So I think is this the best Ohio State team? No, but I think it's one of the better ones that they've had the last 60 ever since the college football playoffs started. And Michigan, I don't know. I don't see them beating them anyways in this game, so it wouldn't matter. But again, if they were to win this game and they were to win the Big Ten, they'd have to be in. And then would Ohio State be in? They'd have 2 losses and no bowl championship. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago where that happened, and they weren't put in. They were number five, I think they were, or yeah, they were number five. I don't think they were put in that year. So yeah, that this is it's really whoever wins this game is gonna one of these two teams is gonna be in there, but it's just whoever wins it, which I think is gonna be Ohio State.
I hope Michigan wins it. I mean, my one of my my grandfather is a big Michigan fan, so I'll be rooting for Michigan, but I think it also makes for a more interesting playoff, like who gets in, who gets out scenario. Because if Ohio State wins, obviously Ohio State's in, Michigan is not in, and I don't think I want to see Cincinnati in the playoff. I would feel bad if they were to go undefeated and not make the playoff. I don't know if that's realistically going. Like, if Cincinnati goes undefeated and misses the playoff, that's unfortunate. And it makes me question, how you even handle this type of stuff. Obviously, expanding it has been a big topic before. Again, I don't have like a super developed essay on whether or not the playoff should be expanded. My gut tells me no, but there's also a legitimate argument for yes. And the reason I would say no is just because we know who the best three teams in college football are. Obviously, every year four do get in, but if it was a flexible amount, I mean, pretty much every year, it's like we see the clear drop off in quality of teams. Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama. We don't even need any other teams. The only reason we have a fourth team, we would have to have a fourth team, is literally because it would be dumb for the one seed they get a bye. But I mean, we don't even need to watch whoever is I really don't think we need to watch the game between whoever the one seed is and the four seed, assuming it's probably Georgia, and if it's Cincinnati, I literally will not need to watch that game.
No, and usually, honestly, you're right. There's always three teams for sure, and in most years there's a fourth team, which would be Clemson. But obviously they just you lose Trevor Lawrence and you don't have someone to replace him, you're probably not going to be as good, which is the case. But yeah, that's why I would say they should expand it because there's a guaranteed three teams, and then there's rather Clemson, Oklahoma, or Notre Dame, who's
LSU
usually yeah,
is
LSU as
sometimes
well.
there.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. And even like there was Michigan State one year. There was, I think maybe even someone else another year. But it's usually those three teams and then those three or four other teams. So I think
There's
expanding it to what are you gonna say?
I was gonna say there's almost never a year where there are legitimately six teams who could win it all.
Yeah, yeah.
Or
It's
there's definitely
usually
yeah.
three.
It's usually three or four. There's really never a time when I'm like, okay, if we expanded the playoff to six teams or to eight teams or to 12 teams, I would never say that if we expanded it to 12 that there is a shot that teams 7 through 12 are winning. There's just no shot. And there's probably a very, very, very little chance that teams 7, 6, 5 are winning either. So, yeah, I don't see the point. I really don't.
Yeah, look, is would the competition honestly get better? No, because if you were to expand it to eight teams, which I think they will do at some point, because again, at some point there's just going to be a team that just it's already happened before, but like a team's just not going to make it, and they obviously just should make it, or at least like what they tell you, what the regulation should be is that they should make it, but you'd rather go with like Oklahoma, or you'd rather go with like Notre Dame over Cincinnati, or like when UCF went undefeated. Like, of course they weren't going to get in, but they were undefeated, so. It's going to expand, but like if Georgia had to play right now, the eight seeds Baylor, like of course Georgia would beat them. But again, it would make you a lot of money because that's nationally televised game. Every single one of those games is nationally televised. Everyone would watch them, even though you know what the outcome is. You'd still watch it, or at least have it on. Maybe you're not entirely focused on that, but you're still watching it. So that's obviously a reason why as well. But yeah, I feel like at some point in the near future, they're just going to have to expand it because, um, again, money wise, but also just like teams are going to complain and everything. And then with all this grouping of the conferences and everything, like when Oklahoma and Texas are in the SEC, it's just like who's going to be at the Big 12? Who's going to come out of the Big 12 then? So it's just there's so many things at play here. And I would be very surprised if they don't expand it within 2, 3, 4 years. I'd be surprised.
Yeah, I agree. I think they do expand it. It's not. I don't think it's a bad decision necessarily. I just don't think it's a great one. I think money wise, 100% worth it.
Yeah.
Entertainment wise, I mean, you get more games out of it, and these games will still be exciting even if they're not maybe Georgia, Georgia Baylor wouldn't be exciting, but the matchup between the 4 and the 5, sure, that would be exciting. But yeah, to me, like Alabama, okay, let's say they expanded it to 8 teams. Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State this year. Literally, I would just there's an argument made, just don't even play your starters the first like 6 games of the year. You can legitimately lose 3 or 4 games and like still get in. If Alabama was a 3-loss team and this was an 8 team, I'm still putting them in. Like they're still a top 8 team. I don't care.
If I mean that'd be tough, but honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they were to make it as like an 8 seed. It'd be tough with three because again, that's just a lot. And again, they'd never lose 3 games, but I really wouldn't be surprised honestly if they would have made it with 3 losses. To be honest.
Yeah, I just there's just not even like a reason to care about the games because you can walk on like Alabama just walks on the field and is instantly a 10-win team. So
Yeah,
I just
but
I don't know.
another argument could also be like you were saying, Ohio State and Michigan never play twice a year. You could have rivalries that could expand into playoff games. Now you could have again Ohio State and Michigan. You're always gonna have like a Georgia Alabama or something. They never play in the regular season because they're on different divisions, but they play in the playoffs. But again, you could have teams that are in the same division now play in the playoffs. I think that could mean something as well. So that's another reason to expand it because then again, you'd never get Ohio State, Michigan. There's just no way both of them could make it because you're always going to have at least one and most likely two SEC teams make it. And then with the Big 12 how it is right now, you're almost guaranteed to have a Big 12 team. And then if maybe like a Pac 12 team were to make it, so it's almost impossible to have two Big 10 teams unless like a Georgia or an Alabama were to have like 2 losses each. But that's never going to happen. So it's that's another way that it's another reason to expand it, I should say.
No, that definitely is something I could get behind because let's just say that Ohio State wins this week. Ohio State wins the Big Ten championship, so there, and then Georgia loses the SEC championship to Bama. That probably means or could mean that Ohio State's at the 1,
Yeah,
and then probably Bama 2, Georgia 3, and then assuming the Ohio State Michigan game is close and Michigan looks like a real team, they could probably fall down to 8, and then that would mean first round of the playoffs, you have Ohio State and Michigan playing again, which would be exciting.
yeah.
So yeah. But I think that's probably enough college football for the year.
There was a lot of college football.
We don't talk college football too much, but the games. I don't watch every college football game. I don't think. I mean, nobody does, but there
Neither
are
do
people who
I.
know more about specifics for sure. But it's definitely exciting. I think the reason we just aren't into college football is one, we don't have to cope with the fact that our NFL teams are bad by liking college football. That's what the people down south have to do. That's what that's why people love Bama. I don't want to, so, but also we just, I mean, what are the good, you're not going to be a Rutgers fan. I'm not going to be a BC fan. Like that's just, there's no point, like there's just no good college football teams where we live really. We talked about it, but the best team's legitimately Penn State, which
Yeah,
at best is like a 5 seed in their prime years is like a 5 seed, which is obviously good. It's just, and it's not even really close to us. Honestly, it's really not that close to us. So
no, and it's just like college football. Like I've never been a college fan. College basketball the same. Again, I only pay attention when it's March Madness. College football, I really only pay attention when it gets to the playoffs. So I just don't find it as enjoyable to watch as professionals. NBA and NFL I just find way more enjoyable to watch. And like you said, I just know if I'm an Alabama fan or something, I just know we're not going to lose. And if we do lose, it's going to be one game, whether it's a miracle game from some team or you lose to like Auburn or you lose to Georgia in the championship. Like you're going to lose to like a really talented team, or it's just going to be an insane game that will be a memorable game, but that's 1 out of 12 games that you play and all the other games are blowouts, so it's just I don't think it's enjoyable, and that's for the best team in the country, so it's just I just, and again, when you're raised in the Northeast, you're never raised on college football. If you're raised in the South, you're raised on college football, so it's a whole different thing there as well.
I would agree with the whole Bama wins every single game thing, except that would be hypocritical of me because I pretty much watched every Patriots game. But well, when there was Brady, but you
Yeah,
legitimately as a Patriots fan did not have to watch the regular season.
yeah,
So
Yeah, true.
But I do agree with that.
But even
But
still, the
yeah,
Patriots would go 12-4 though. I mean,
yeah, no, it was still like you were still competing for the 1 seed. I
yeah.
guess Bama's still kind of doing the same thing, but whether or not they play whoever in the playoff doesn't really mean anything because they're going to be there anyways. But yeah, I think that's enough college football for the foreseeable future. For probably, well, I guess probably just the next week. Probably next week
So
we'll be
the
talking about it again.
Yeah, and then obviously for the actual bowl games, like the when the playoffs start, I should say.
Yeah, but that's pretty much it. I think I saw like 15 plus minutes of college football. Impressive.
Yeah.
But appreciate everybody stay to the end of the video. Feel free to check out Brandon's video he just posted on the Clips channel description. I'll be posting a video on the Clips channel in the next 24 hours, so feel free to check that out as well. Um, that's it. Feel free to like all that. Brandon, anything else before?
I guess I'll have my Cowboys recap of Thanksgiving at some point before Sunday, but other than that, it's just our Sunday. Assuming we do it Sunday night, it'll be our recap of the Sunday games.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we will be back probably Sunday night. Feel free to check out Clips channel, all that stuff. Goodbye.